Hey, welcome back to Tucson Garage. Today we've got this 2006 Jeep Liberty CRD in the shop again. It's got a turbo underboost code. We're going to take a look at it. We'd like to get this back out of the shop today so we can be back on the road. Let's get started. We've actually got two confirmed trouble codes, P0299 vacuum reservoir control circuit open and turbocharger underboost, P0299. So we're going to take a look, see what's going on. What I noticed when driving was check engine light came on, didn't have its full power. If I would step on it, a whole lot of black smoke coming out. Finished driving it home, we checked the oil and there is nothing on the dipstick. So let me just verify that. And this was full up just a couple weeks ago. Yeah, there's absolutely nothing on that dipstick. It's not leaving a pool of oil underneath of it, not shooting a bunch of oil out the exhaust. So I'm gonna show you what I found when I looked at it. I guess first to tell you, this hose was just replaced. It had cracks in it, it was leaking. Everything on this side of the engine looks dry. Of course, we got the turbocharger right back here, but everything looks good there. I actually looked underneath, and down below, there's oil down in the bottom of the engine on this right side or driver's side, and there's oil down where the oil plug is. So I went ahead and looked up top here. Hopefully you can see that it is soaking wet with oil right down there coming off that EGR elbow. Dust and debris has been sticking to the intake manifold right here. We're going to do an EGR valve delete at some point, and then we'll get that mounted back up again. So with that said, let's put our gloves on. Let's see if any of these bolts are loose. We're going to take off the valve possibly if we have to. Well, I can see all kinds of oil down underneath, but I can see a lot of oil residue right up here on top by this elbow. I'm going to start by checking the torque on those bolts. First two are good. That one is good. It's had an EGR delete done on it before we owned it. Now it's just got the EGR airflow valve still connected. We're not going to be able to get to that back left bolt without taking off the alternator bracket. Let's disconnect the battery and start working. Just got a couple connectors on the alternator. One bolt, one washer. I put these right back on the alternator bolt coming out. So our alternator is disconnected. And now we're going to have to loosen up this serpentine belt and get that off. For the serpentine belts, I just use an EverTough serpentine belt tensioner tool at 67061. I think I got this from O'Reilly's Auto Parts. You've got your crow's feet, you've got your sockets, and of course your bars. Like that, the serpentine belt is loose enough here. You can manage to find a way to keep tension on this and keep it on all your pulleys, but I generally don't, and then I have to worry about that afterwards. Not a huge deal. Okay, on your alternator you've got your front bracket. It holds the alternator on, but it also holds the shroud on with this little point. These are 12mm bolts. You've got two of them in the front. Here's your front bracket. Put your bolts right back in. Move this off to a different workbench. Okay, so that's the front. Now you're going to want to take your bracket off the back. It's got two bolts. Top one's going to be a 13. Notice how they're not super duper tight. This next one I think is a 15. Affirmative, it's a 15. Get yourself an extension so you can get down in there easily. As you loosen up this last bolt, your alternator is going to want to fall forward, so just catch it. If you don't have a shroud, it'll fall right into the radiator potentially. There's a washer on this, so don't let that come falling off, it will. Okay, so we're loose. You can see the different sizes here. This is the top, this is the bottom on the back bracket. Just work it out nice and gently. And there is your alternator. Just go put this on a different workbench. There's one more short bolt in the back. And then you can grab your bracket out. You're going to want to do this so you can have it be out of the way as you mess with the EGR airflow valve. If you need to check out how to replace the glow plugs on these, I've got a video. It's kind of done during the earlier days, but I think it's still helpful. You can go ahead and check that out. I'll put a card or a link up on the screen to it. So here's how your bracket sits in. Okay, so now we can see in there a little ways. As you can see down here, it's dry. And as we come over that valve, it's wet. So it might have something to do with the valve. Let's keep digging. Okay, we don't necessarily have to do this, but we're gonna take off this hose since we replaced this hose. We've got this hose sitting here in the shop, and we're just gonna replace it because one's gone bad, odds are the other one will be going bad soon enough. Since we're down here messing, let's just take care of that while we're here. This just got the little 1/4 inch ratchet with the number 8. We've got our alternator cables right here. Just so I can move this one out of the way, I'm going to disconnect this connector right here as well. There we go. You're not going to get these messed up. They're all unique. So just have a general remembrance, whatever that means. Let's go put this on the workbench and let's see if we can work this hose out. Oofta, you can see where it's been rubbing. Let's take this off and maybe we'll get lucky enough to find a crack here in the hose. And this will poke you, so be a little careful as you take it off. There's a lot of oil down here. Doesn't really appear to be fresh. We'll see as we go. Okay, it's definitely dirty, but I don't know that it's the cause. Let's take a look at the hose. What you want to do is you want to bend them. It was starting to get beat up, but it's definitely not the cause for the leak. Let's go ahead and take our connector off of the EGR airflow control valve. Yep. There we go. Use it on a number 8 ratcheting wrench to take these little bolts off. Okay, so to get these out, this EGR elbow, I went ahead and did quite a bit of an extension. You just go right from underneath, right through the spaces here, and you can go up. You can loosen them up. Couldn't quite get the front left one to come out all the way. It was just stuck in there a little bit, so I ended up coming up here and just wiggling it around, and I was able to get it to drop out. We got all 4 of those bolts out. They're 8mm bolts. Now let's get this elbow out. This is what I have noticed. Quite a bit of fresh oil on the back side of that gasket. Even on the bottom right here, like it wasn't sealing quite right. Could be an issue. Well, it's definitely an issue. Is it our root cause? Hopefully we can see. But right now, that's looking like the most offensive thing we've found. Okay, so let's get these wire harnesses out of the way. See if we can get this out without ruining anything. Just kind of work it. If you haven't done an EGR delete, or in this case, I don't know if it's a delete or not, honestly, but it's capped off underneath, you're gonna have another clamp to get off underneath of this hose, and I'll show you that when I get this out. This doesn't have that, which really helps out with the ease of getting this EGR elbow out. Oh, Dripping oil all over the place, don't do that. So it's definitely oily back here, but I don't think this is the culprit. I'm not seeing anything that's huge concern except for if it was leaking out this gasket up here, which that could very well be the case. Here's what I'm thinking. I am thinking that the back nut, or bolt I should say, came loose. And I remember the last time when I was replacing the glow plugs on this, I had a little bit of a difficulty with the bolt being stripped, and I tightened it up as good as I could get it without it swinging back around off that strip point. And I think that's our culprit. So we're going to take a shot. We're actually going to take and we're going to put in an EGR airflow valve delete pipe on this. Let's get started on replacing that. We're going to change the oil in it after it's done. We'll take it down the road after we clear the code, and we'll see if it comes back. Okay, so we've got a couple Jeep CRDs sitting around. This is coming off the 2006 that's outside. Just adding more work to that one once we finally get to it. But we're going to put this pipe on. It's going to have a fitting right down here that attaches to where the elbow used to be. And that's going to seal up any leaks we had in the EGR system there at that point. It's coming from another area. We'll find out right away because that code's going to come right back. Here's the adapter that goes up. Actually, it goes like this. We're going to clean off. It's got a little bit of a gasket left on it. We're going to clean this all up. This is after we sprayed it down with some carbon intake cleaner. Now let's take it to the wire brush. There we go. It's all cleaned, ready to be put on. So what this comes with is 4 nuts and 4 threads. We're going to start by threading in each of the 4 pipe threads. And you can just thread them all the way until they stop. When you do this, one end is going to be open. This is your end that's facing out and that your nut goes onto. The other end is which end goes up inside. Okay, those are all in. We've got our 4 studs in there. Make sure you get them in. It takes a little effort. Don't cross thread them. I can tell that there might have been some early on cross threading going on in this in a previous owner. We worked past that, and I think it's okay. I backed one of them out, and the threads look just fine. It's actually right up in the front. You can just slide right past those stripped out threads. Everything else appears to have corrected itself, so we should be good, thankfully. Let's go ahead and put this on. Where'd our flashlight go? We're going to put our adapter on, but first we're going to grab, here's our gasket. It's not cracked. It's going to go on just like so. We've got a clean surface. So I can tell you already what's going on up inside there. It's just crumbling. At some point in time, something happened, got stripped out. I got to figure out a way to get this in without having to re-thread it. We've got them double nutted. We are going to try to thread this in and make it bite in. Wish me luck. And it is tight, so that's good. It's nice and snug down. I wouldn't go any tighter than that, otherwise it's going to strip again potentially, but much better than it was, that is for sure. With the adapter plate on, let's go ahead and put our tube on. I don't know what angle I can do this so you guys can see it good, but maybe this will work a little better here. You can tell it goes this way because it dips way down, and then it'll come up and meet your turbo pipe. Dip it underneath your air conditioning line. Got our clamp, got our 8mm socket. If you get a little pick, it really helps to get those hoses over. Alright, we're up and on all the way. Hose clamp time. Alright, this one's all done. Now we're just going to connect our hose. Alright, we've reached the point where we've got the clamps on the turbo hose. We've got it routed. Checking to make sure it's not rubbing. It comes very close. And as you could tell by the marks that we found on this before, it had been rubbing just a little bit. I think right down here, this zip tie end was probably the lead culprit. So I've moved that out of the way, and I am going to order another turbo hose and replace it in the future. Probably won't worry about doing a video on that. So hose clamp here, it's tightened down. We've got both our hose clamps. We've got them in accessible areas if we need to adjust. We've got our oil dipstick mount connected. We've got all the studs in, all the bolts on, they're all tight. And now we're going to put the alternator and alternator bracket back in. These should thread in easy, so if they're fighting you, hold up and reset. All right, let's hope it's a thumbs up, maybe 2 thumbs up. I'm gonna go get cleaned up. We're gonna hop in it. We're gonna take it for a drive and see how it does. Okay, let's take it out for a drive, see if that engine light comes back on. Yeah, the engine code came right back. So, maybe that was not it. We're gonna drive it a little bit here. See if maybe it'll drive out of this. That engine light came back right away. Okay, so we've got 1 pending trouble code, 1 confirmed. Yeah, Turbocharger Underboost came back. There it is again. Just like that. Back to the drawing board on this one. See you guys back in the shop.